I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins from Your Black World, and just recently we saw that there was a trial or the verdict of a trial of Michael Dunn. Michael Dunn was accused of killing 17-year-old Jordan Davis. It wasn't disputed that he killed Davis. The question was why he did it and how it all went down. And as you saw, Dunn was convicted on 4 out of 5 counts, but he was not convicted on the first-degree murder charge or any of the lesser offenses, which upset and offended some people. So to kind of get a deeper understanding of this, I wanted to talk to a criminologist that I respect, Dr. Chenelle Jones. Dr. Jones was gracious enough to join me on a Sunday morning to talk about this, and she's on the line. How you doing today, Dr. Jones?
I'm good. Just getting news of this verdict as well, so kind of taking it all in along with everyone else.
Okay. Now, you're a criminologist, I want to say at Ohio Dominican University. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. I wanted to make sure I got that right. I didn't write that down. And, you have a unique insight into the criminal justice system, how it works. And, a lot of people were frustrated about, how this guy could not be found guilty on every single count, or, why it was so hard to prove that, that he did something wrong when he killed Jordan Davis and shot up the car with his friends in it. When you saw this verdict, how did you feel? I mean, did you feel that it was just? Did you feel that it was problematic? I mean, what was your response?
It wasn't a just verdict. That's number one, but we need to trace this back to what the original charges were. He was overcharged to begin with. They should have never tried him for first-degree murder unless they were able to prove that issue of premeditation, which they weren't able to do. And so we saw that because obviously all the jury, everyone at the jury, they agreed on that, the 4 charges, but it was that the higher charge, the murder, that they weren't able to agree on that.
Well, weren't there? So, I want to interrupt and ask you this though. Weren't there? I mean, couldn't they have convicted him of a lesser charge like manslaughter or second-degree murder or something like that? I mean, what do you think the reason was for not even convicting him on that?
I don't know what's going in the mind of Angela Corey and what may have caused her to try that first-degree murder. But yes, they could have. They could have easily tried him on manslaughter. They could have tried him on second-degree murder. Those are a lot easier to prove. When you have the issue of first-degree murder, you have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that it was premeditated. And, when we talk about this issue of premeditation is if you have a wife, okay, and you catch your wife sleeping with somebody else, and, you kept coming to the room and see her sleeping with somebody else, a guy. Premeditation is you going back home, you thinking about it, you planning out the perfect offense, and then coming back and killing whomever she slept with. That is premeditation. Proving that Michael Dunn premeditated this is very, very difficult, and obviously that's where the jury got hung up on. And it would have been easier if they would have charged him with the manslaughter or the second-degree murder, because you don't have to deal with that issue of premeditation, and that's where we ran into a lot of the problems with this case. But you pair that, but there are so many other things that we need to take into consideration with this case. The composition of the jury, there were no black males on the jury, how the prosecution actually went along with trying this case, all of those factors play a part. And then that inherent criminality that's usually ascribed to black males. I think Michael Dunn used this, that he really did fear his life. And we need to, really come to a conclusion is, are black men scary? Apparently that defense can still be upheld in a court of law, as we saw most recently.
Well, Dr. Jones, I found it interesting that when you talk about black males, it's almost like people talk about black men the way they talk about animals. If you think about an endangered animal, like I guess it's either black bears or brown bears that are endangered, and you can't shoot them in Alaska. The only excuse you have to shoot that particular type of bear, I think it's the brown bear, is if you're in fear for your life. And so everybody who shoots a brown bear comes back and says, I was in fear for my life. And the bear can't talk. The bear's dead, but even if the bear was alive, he still couldn't talk, right? And it's your word against his. So that's how people get away with it. And it almost seems that with black men, there is an appropriate analogy because people have a fantasy, a perception that black men are just scary, that we wake up, ready to gangbang and thug over breakfast, and that that literally this story about these teenagers getting upset because a white man told them to turn down their music and holding out a shotgun saying you're gonna die. I mean, if you even heard the story sounded stupid. It was like, really? I think he said that the guy said you're dead. So why in the hell are you gonna pull the shotgun out and say you're dead because somebody told you to turn your music down? I mean, that didn't even make any sense. But I almost got a sense that the story was credible because he was talking about young black males. I mean, is that, was that a perception that you kind of had in this trial?
Well, the perception that I had from this trial was you have a white guy who told a group of black teenagers what to do, and they didn't listen to him, and he got upset. And because they defied what he told them to do, he opened fire on them. That's what I got from this case. And all that does is further speak to this issue of white supremacy. I always say, sometimes I think that white supremacy has crippled white America's ability to adapt to other cultures and accept other cultures and races because they only go by what is acceptable to them, what they know, and because they've had to operate from a position of superiority that has influenced the way in which they interact with other racial groups. And so here, when you have this group of young men who said, no, we're not going to listen to this guy. You're not my mom, you're not my dad. You don't tell me what to do. I can play my music. Michael Dunn, he got upset. I mean, he clearly got upset. And that speaks to the more broader issue of the ways in which the social hierarchy that we have for African Americans, and African American males in particular. He thought he was above them and that they should listen to him. And they didn't.
Interesting. That's so interesting. And I'll tell you, and I'll say this will be my last point, and I'll let you get the last word. I had a real difficult time this week talking. First of all, I didn't enjoy. It was one of the few times where I got called by CNN to talk about this several times, maybe 3 or 4 times in the last 3 or 4 days, or last 5 days, something like that. And I didn't enjoy the appearances because I just kept thinking to myself, it's amazing to me that we're literally making this a news item where I have to explain, why this kid didn't deserve to be killed. It's like I have to work this hard to convince people that that he was a normal child, that he wasn't somebody who had a death wish and wasn't running around looking to kill a white man. And and I remember, one of the people that works for me found this audio tape of an interview that one of Michael Dunn's neighbors did with the police about a year ago. And I don't think CNN knew about this interview. And so I mentioned the interview on the air, and I said, well, it's interesting to me that if you want to go on the stand and you want to say that Michael Dunn is a great guy, you're allowed to do that. If people go on the stand, they want to say that Jordan Davis was a horrible person, they're allowed to do that. But for some reason, in the courtroom, the evidence was not heard where this neighbor explained in very detailed terms that Michael Dunn was a horrible guy, that Michael Dunn had asked to have somebody killed. He'd committed various forms of financial fraud. He had, he was a bully. He tried to scare and intimidate people. He had women that he'd been in relationships with who were afraid of him. There's even the story now that just came out today about him forcing his wife to have sex with other men and just all kinds of craziness. And I'm like, why isn't the jury hearing this? This makes me angry toward the system. And I remember when I brought it up on CNN, the lady shut me down really fast. And I've been talking about this a little bit on social media because I was like, I don't understand why we can't bring this out. Because this explains that this guy is worse than George Zimmerman. And if you want to understand someone's actions, you have to understand their history. If you don't understand their history, then you can't interpret what they're doing. If I hold up 2 thumbs up and you don't know who I am, you don't know what that means, maybe that really means something. But maybe that's something I do when I want to disrespect you, or it's something that it's a gang sign. You never know, right? So my thing was that, it offended me that in the courtroom, in the media, everywhere, they were not bringing out this evidence from this very credible witness. Now, to CNN's credit, the next day, after I called them back and said, no, you guys shut me off on the interview over this, but you need to look at this. I don't know if your producers did their work or not. I mean, most of them are about 12 years old anyway. But, you need to go find this interview because this is authentic. We checked it out. And the following day, the story did hit the national media. CNN covered it and talked about it all day long. And it helped people understand what kind of guy this was. And if this hadn't happened, no one would know. And that bothers me. I mean, that tells me something's wrong with this system. I mean, do you think that there are just areas where our criminal justice system really needs to be overhauled. I mean, if we're going to be upset, who do we get mad at? Do we get mad at Michael Dunn? Do we get mad at the prosecution? Do we get mad at the defense attorneys? Do we get mad at society for its perceptions of black males? Do we get mad at the criminal justice system itself for the fact that it sets the bar so low when it comes to reasonable doubt that black men are almost never going to get justice? Because if you kill a black man, all you have to do is kill a black man, maybe kill a black man that has a criminal record, maybe kill a black man that was trying to defend himself, or, you know, get yourself a witness to say he was trying to hurt me, and you're going to go free. I mean, what does it say about our criminal justice system?
This actually says a lot about the criminal justice system. And one of the things that I always say with regards to the criminal justice system is, if you look at the very evolution of the criminal justice system, how it was founded, how it was built upon, it was built to marginalize, subdue, and control African Americans. Trace that all the way back, look at the lineage of it, from slave codes, which were passed to control slaves. Who enforced those? Slave patrols. Slave patrols, then those slave laws and those slave codes, they turn into black codes. Whether they didn't control the life and everyday, just day-to-day mundane activities of African Americans. Then transform that, you have your slave codes, you have your black codes, then you go to your Jim Crow laws. Those still control the day-to-day mundane activities of African Americans. Who are enforcing those? Law enforcement officials who have been granted that power and that authority by the very criminal justice system that we think is supposed to protect us. If you have that same entity enforcing these disparate laws and marginalizing, subduing, and controlling African American populations through the use of these laws, then that system is not designed to protect in the first place. So when you have African Americans who are then victimized by society or these heinous crimes, these African American males who are targeted and killed, the system already devalues them to begin with. So of course the system is not going to protect that same African American male when laws were imposed to marginalize and control that same population. So we have to get past this notion that the system is broken or that the system failed somebody. No, the system was not right to begin with, and the system is actually doing exactly what it was designed to do, which is to control, subdue, marginalize these disadvantaged populations, these minority populations, and that's what it did. We saw that with the Trayvon Martin case. We saw that with this case. We saw that with the Scottsboro boys. Do I need to go back in history because I can name them over and over and over again each time where we've had juries really afford no justice to African American victims. And I mean, that's what we're getting at. So there is a much broader notion. And so when people say, oh, we got 4 out of the 5 counts, he's still going to jail for, at minimum 60, 75 years, justice was served. No, justice was not served because we still are not addressing the broader issue that the justice system is still failing to protect African Americans who are victimized. That's what we're getting at. And that's what is the problem with this verdict. That's the problem with this case. And until we actually get more people to go vote, to register to vote, that's where we pull the juries, and that's where they can become a part of this process. And then also, the issue at hand with Florida as well is the stand your ground laws. They really need to go revisit those stand your ground laws, because it was brought up in this case. It should not have been. I believe it was a self-defense, but somehow it still trickled its way into the case. So all of those factors play a part in this, and it's a very unfortunate outcome. We need to continue to pray for Jordan Davis's families, but not only him, but for the many other African American males who this will continue to happen to unless we all rally together, unless some substantive change is done. You can get on your Facebook, you can get on your Twitter, you can get on your any other Instagram, and you can say, oh, this is unfortunate, protest that way, but you actually need to get out on the ground and change legislation, change who you vote in office, so that way these laws, these juries, these stand your ground laws, we can actually initiate some change. Wow. So that's what I have to say about that.
Well, you said a lot, Dr. Jones. That was really insightful. And I'm just going to end it on that. I mean, you really you laid it down and you dropped the mic, and now I'm gonna let you just walk off the stage because that was an amazing display of expertise, and that's exactly the reason why I called you. And that's why other people should call you too, because I think that you are the kind of voice that we need to hear from, particularly in times like this. And so I'm not going to say anything else because I don't want to mess up the great exhibition you just made in terms of laying out that information so plainly for people. So I want to say thank you so much, Dr. Jones, for your time. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. No problem. Anytime.
All right. Yes. We're gonna keep working together because you actually studied under Dr. Byron Price. Am I correct?
I did.
Yeah,
Yes.
that is
Price. He does a lot of work looking at the prisons and privatizations and this sort of thing too. He's a very good scholar.
Oh, Dr. Byron Price is he's a great friend of mine. That's how I heard of you. He introduced me to your work, and Byron's an old friend of mine. And I have so much respect for him, and I consider him and you and others that are in that space to be scholar warriors. And we're all a team. We work together, and we are assets to our community, and and we have to be ready to go to battle. Doesn't matter how much you can do. What matters is that you do something with it. So thank you so much for what you're giving to the community, Dr. Chenelle Jones.
You're very welcome.
All right, everybody. Well, that's Dr. Chenelle Jones at Ohio Dominican University. She's a criminologist and just an all-around smart person. And I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins, who's not as smart as Dr. Jones, but I do okay. And thank you for checking us out at Your Black World. And until we meet again, please stay strong, be blessed, and be educated. We are gone. Peace.